Welcome to the Rook podcast, and in today's episode we're going to be talking about my interpretation and explanation for witchcraft and how I utilize it in my practice. This is a question that hasn't come up consistently, but it's the foundation for a lot of questions that come up because posting tutorials on social media, you learn very quickly that people aren't just a part of your community and you're sharing your craft with other practitioners. It's a lot of newcomers, and that opens a lot of floodgates of problems, and also for the student and for the content creator, and it can be a bit misconstrued because people will start to utilize every step that you share as their core craft, and that to me that can be a bit of a problem. And it's not because this is my spell. I'm going to be completely clear. Whatever I show online, if somebody profits off of it, I'm going to get a cut of that. There's things you can do. Work with Belial about that. Ask Mammon about that sort of stuff. Mammon I've never worked with in terms of witchcraft. Belial knows a lot about business and witchcraft. So you can absolutely set those systems into place where I've had people steal my ideas, verbatim. And I know that can be very tricky in the magic community, but I have a lot of apothecary shops, not ones owned by my friends, but random ones that are just starting out, and they'll follow you and they'll take something really, really obscure that you do, and then they'll be on their shop within a couple days. And I can't help but feel like that's a little invasive. When people start picking ideas from the internet and not giving credit, my ego does kind of come out. It always has with cooking. Side note, because I'm going to probably ping pong a little bit, I've applied for jobs in kitchens, and I made the mistake in my early 20s. There's this one vegan cafe that went under in Sacramento. And I showed up for the interview, and I showed up just in a t-shirt and my work pants, not the whole chef coat, because you can do working interviews, right? So I went in for an interview, and the chef, she wasn't a chef, she just owned the place, and they ended up going under because they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. And that's the case for a lot of restaurants. Please be careful where you eat, because a lot of people don't know what they're doing. We'll hire everybody, and it just tanks in 6 months. But anyways, she had asked, if you were to make a cupcake, what would this be? And I had been bouncing ideas off of my head, and I was like, oh no, this would be good. I was also a vegetarian and going plant-based. I was a vegetarian for 13 years, and it was cool. I eat a lot of meat now. So I'm the polar opposite. I eat mostly meat and the protein now. But I wanted to work in a place that was spiritual, but they were too fucking much. I'll get back on track, I promise. But this place, they were fucking doing seances over the baking sheets, and it was but the gluten stuff didn't matter. They can be in mixed pans, didn't matter for that, the gluten-free shit. But you had to do an incantation over every baking sheet, and it was stupid fuck. Anyways, a month later, this vegan cafe was selling all their stuff, and they had space sold at Whole Foods, right, for their products. Super fucking, 2 cupcakes were exactly what I said. One was lavender lemon, and one was some other thing, and it was obvious. She sold them in the packs of 2 at the store, and me and my best friend at the time, who is also a chef, was like, what? This is a bit fucking obvious, and you can't prove it, but it was one of those things that, lavender and lemon is kind of outplayed these days, but back in the 2000s, nobody was doing it. I'm kidding, but those sorts of conflicting things, sometimes it's a bit confronting, and you can't have that attitude, because everybody has the right to kind of get inspiration. You know what I mean? You can't copyright spells, and you can't copyright recipes. So that's where things get a bit fishy for me in terms of spell work. It's the same parallels. People just biting off of your work and taking it from you. So I do have incentives for the things I share, where if somebody profits off of them, it's going to be taken from them, and I'll get that money. And it's happened. The energy in witchcraft works. It might not work on your timing. It'll work in divine timing, and it'll be a lesson for that other person too. Because once they start having issues with my astral tea blend that somebody ripped off of me, literally, I know there's a lot of astral tea blends, but I know for a fucking fact that this bitch took mine, because no one's using pastry glitter, or I have it to where it looks like outer space in my cup. And I dreamt of this recipe too. But anyways, I was kind of bummed out, and it was my fault for sharing it. But I do things like that. It has your signature. It has your essence, that your essential signature, if you will, on the things that you do. So when you are starting your craft and you take from other practitioners, or you get inspiration, I'm not even saying like you can use things that other people do if they share it, it's my problem is when people start like doing it just to monetize and profit and they have no experience. Like I've been doing this shit my whole life, but when you use a spell from another practitioner, you put your own essence on it. But also for me, I like to just give that gratitude. I know it sounds weird. I don't exhaust my energy on everything and people, but I think that it's like a merited thing. I mean, you don't have to, but in terms of how I interpret energy, first of all, I have been exposed to witchcraft at a very young age, and it was consistently in my surroundings my entire life. And I never like brainwashed or indoctrinated. It was just always around. It was always respected and understood. So I was very blessed to have that spiritual sense kind of preserved. But I found my own path, like, edgy 13 years old, and there's Silver Raven, Wolf, and Scott Cunningham books in your home library, and just all these like random, Wiccan things. But I've always connected with the things that I'm doing, and I've read, and I feel like I can feel the energy of it, even like plastic things, because it's just alchemy. People go, it's not natural. You're representing a specific time in history where things were rustic, and that essence deserves to be honored. But there is technology, and there's alchemy, and everything in this room has come from petroleum, to be honest. But it's come from the earth in one way, and the imagination of man has recreated something else, and we lose touch with that. The problem with these days, and you don't have to like, oh well, some guy made this candle, it's like, it's not like that. You definitely can if you want to, but things are so sterilized these days because of manufacturing, so it's not really needed. But I do like to collect energy, and not like creepy way, like from people like fucking ooh. I mean, sometimes when I go thrift shopping and I find an ingredient, don't find ingredients that you're going to eat at a thrift shop, please. I find an item, and sometimes I won't cleanse it because I'll protect and I'll put things up, but I feel like I know that energy. It's weird. Like I have gotten stuff from the thrift shop, and this can be all in my head, but I've been certain, like this tapestry over here I'm staring at, this small one, you can't see, I'm certain a witch owned it. It's those sorts of things too, like I know it sounds silly, but you have to kind of understand too certain things, in my opinion. For one, these are like psychological tools. Before anything, it reminds you of cleansing, right? And it has that effect. The placebo effect is just like this term coined that kind of stupefies the experience. So it can kind of distract us from the potential of the human mind. If everything that I'm experiencing, like with my spiritual stuff, is external, that should be, merited and researched. And if it's not, then the human mind should be researched too, which they are. Both of those things are absolutely. But the people, we just dismiss things. Oh, it's a placebo effect, it doesn't matter. When most of us are so stupefied and like calcified, spiritually, we don't even know what the fuck's going on. So it's just interesting to me how the placebo effect gets kind of like bypassed. But crystals, outside of the energies that they hold, that you can feel, that you can see, some of us can see it, they're psychological as well. In terms of ingredients, like for instance, I have this little ward over here made out of cinnamon sticks, right? And this is cassia cinnamon. This is like not the true cinnamon, and it's probably why most of fucking people's money spells don't work, because that's all they sell in America is cassia cinnamon. And you know what the problem with cassia cinnamon is? It's fucking lead. That's what the problem is. So we're just consuming traces of lead, but it's safe. I don't know the numbers, but there's a safe amount that you can consume, just like petroleum byproducts and food dyes and shit. Like seriously, I sound like one of those almond moms, but as a parent of a child on the autistic spectrum, I have no food dyes in the house. It will not. I have too much research as a professional cook, and just as a parent in this area, to not allow that shit into the household. My rule is to avoid food insecurities and issues. And I did this with my 2 eldest ones who are grown now. If you really want something, totally we can try it. If you're with somebody else, or you want to go get some fast food from a place that I might not support, you fucking should. And you should be able to talk about how bomb it was. Like, that's it. Like, my moral compass doesn't fucking merit everybody else's choices in my life. You know, like, they all have their own choices. So I want to make that clear, because that's mostly important. However, I think it's bullshit when we get too pushy and or not pushy enough, and we're like, you can eat whatever you want. Everything's a safe food and everything's healthy, because it's becoming illegal to say that, like, a fucking Snickers bar is unhealthy now. It's crazy to me. So I don't have that bullshit in my environment, like, you know, that mentality. I don't do that. I don't for myself. But anyways, getting off topic as usual. I just don't like to indoctrinate people into my beliefs, whether it's spiritual or lifestyle or anything like that. But back on topic to witchcraft. As a chef, my career kind of inspired my practice in my 30s. It did, because I started to learn the ingredients more that I was using, like the edible ingredients that you use for your spell work. Like, everybody uses like lemons and clove and cinnamon and bay leaves, pretty basic stuff, salt. But then you start to really experiment with it more, right? And you start going, okay, well, sugar's a crystalline. I'll charge that under some moon phases and see if it makes a difference for how I feel. And whether it's all psychobabble or not, there's a difference. And it's really inspired just my kind of practice, without sounding like my practice is so fucking important compared to everybody else's. Like, it's stupid. I hate when people do that shit. But anyways, collecting energy is fun, because when you use those tools for a spell, whether it's like for prosperity or a road opener or whatever it is, you put yourself in that mindset, and you use these not only as psychological tools, but the essence and the energy of those tools and the history that they have that we've given them, you know, like currency, cinnamon. I fucking started talking about cinnamon and I got so off topic. Cinnamon has been used for thousands of years. It was thousands of years ago, for a source of currency. And it was a source of currency for a few hundred years. I think 500, but don't quote me. But it has a lot of energy because it was a very high valued commodity, especially Ceylon cinnamon, which I don't have right now. That's the pale sort of cinnamon that's very coiled. That's the true cinnamon. It's kind of papery bark. But yeah, cassia cinnamon, the darker, spicy sort of cinnamon, it's actually not a true cinnamon. It's fucking interesting, huh? How that's like the norm for us, though. We don't know those little fine details. Like, real cinnamon's a bit pricier and it's not as available and everything. We have the cheap shit, and the good shit's saved for, you know, those of you who got some money. So it's fucked. But honestly, right now, cassia cinnamon is like just as expensive as the other shit. You're not even interested in this, are you? You're probably like, bitch, shut the fuck up. Like, show us something. That's what everybody does on TikTok. They're just like, show us a spectacular thing. But me having all of these oils and tinctures, like I have right here, I'll show you something cool. I got this at an op shop. I got this thrifting. They're called op shops here in Australia, but like, I have all of my little bottles, not all of them, some of them that I have right here, because this is my new working altar. So I have been fortifying it and using it, and it's been great. So I got to cleanse. It's a lot of work to have this as like a work desk and summoning demons. You got to do a lot of, it's a weird energy that kind of locks into it. But anyways, that is like the beauty of energy reading. Witchcraft and occultism are two different things, but for me, because I am a witch, I utilize those things in my craft. And if you don't make things like I do, that's totally okay. I will be honest though, because there's a lot of divide in the witchcraft community on whether or not you should make your own things or buy them. And I think it should be a combination of both, in all seriousness. And I think you don't need to make anything super special or spectacular. People do. Like, I see amazing things from people and amazing charms and things people sell, and I think it's lovely. And I think that's what we should be doing as humans, is sharing our energy and our imagination. And if it can help somebody else, how cool is that? That's us connecting without religious oppression. And, even now, as much as I have so much privilege because I can talk openly about my craft, and there are some of you who can't, either because of your home situation or where you live, literally, it can be very highly illegal in places. It is. And there's death penalties, and some of you have shared that with me, like where you are, and it's made me, it really put things in perspective of me. So I learn a lot from my audience. It's not just about you guys coming and seeing what I have to say. Like, I always learn from you too, but it's like this genuine exchange. It's not, oh, what are they going to teach me? Like, that's TikTok. That's the mentality why I got burnt out. But in terms of utilizing other practitioners, tools or salves or oils or tinctures or charms, it's so important to me to be able to feel the energy of another practitioner. It's so amazing and inspiring, because when I buy things online from other witches, especially local here in Australia, because it's kind of difficult for me to order overseas because shipping is unbearable, and I feel really bad because some of my friends have really awesome shops, like a handful of people I know own stores and online and physical stores, and I would like to just gobble up everything and buy it all, but shipping, even for, I'm using my weed grinder, but for something like this, literally is could be up to $80, because we're on a big island away from everybody in another part of the world, so things are harder here. I sound so fucking like a Western woman. Things are so fucking hard in my life. Things are just really inconvenient in terms of accessibility, and I've learned to really be okay with that, because I was a fucking nightmare. Oh my god, I'm so embarrassed by my mentality. When I first moved to Australia, I was so upset that there was no Amazon here, because as a blogger at the time, I needed that 2-day delivery because I had projects and I had contracts and all this shit, and that was really it. At least that was my justification. But it was fucked. I was not. You might as well stuck me in the fucking literal middle of the desert and said, survive, bitch. I am very cool about that sort of stuff. But I was like, man, I need the Starbucks green tea, because that was my favorite thing. I used to just blow my money on. Was an iced green tea, no water, no sweetener. Stupid, right? And I had to have that every day. So I can fucking make my own. How fucking dumb. I just got used to this routine, especially when I started working at home as well and hustling. I would want to leave the house and go get a Starbucks, and then be ordering things online, and then I would take all my money, my extra money that I made, and go buy stupid shit. Oh my gosh. And the accessibility here doesn't exist like it does in America. And now America just seems like a fucking shit. I don't know. It's like a shit show. I left 2016, and then when Trump came into office, everybody lost their shit. And I was cool with Trump. I didn't like him as a president. I just think he's fucking funny. But I don't know. I think they're all fucking twisted, to be honest. Anyways, back to magic. In terms of tapping into other people's energy when you buy their products, I think that I wanted to make a point of this. I'm not trying to just bullshit my way back into talking about witchcraft. It's really important not to have this sort of energy yourself of desperation, because in my opinion, you're going to push away yourself, and you're not going to have an identity with the things that you're doing, and it just won't work. It just won't work long term, in my opinion. I think that certain things can, you get something from a witch, you buy it and you light a candle or some spell kit, that absolutely will work. But you also have to understand, you got to put in your energy into that, and mingle your energies and your intentions. And it's not all about intentions either. I hate, if I have to hear that one more time, I'm gonna fucking throw my phone. It's all about intentions. No, it's not all about intentions. You can't get fucking sawdust and pretend it's cinnamon and be also, that's why your broke ass can't afford anything, because your intentions, it's so much more than that in my experience. Not only is it your intentions, but you can say your intentions. I want to be wealthy. I want to be, what does that mean to you? See, I'm applying all of this and it's working for me, and money's coming into my life without even it being transactional in terms of this, because I had to take kind of a cut. Look, I walked away from YouTube earlier this year because I was just like, this isn't the vibe I want. I don't want to just be like dancing little fucking monkey making content. You got to post 5 times a day and at certain times and your peak hours. Fuck, man. I need to breathe. This is not what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be working my ass off for myself, not for these fucking tech companies that have us running around in circles. So I had to disconnect, and you know what? My spiritual team didn't want that either. And I don't want to chase money. So I had to retract, and I had to really take back my energy, and I had to configure and figure out what I wanted and what exactly that means. And working with Mammon helped me, because the first successful invocation that I had, a ritual that I performed, because the first one, nothing happened. He told me just like for the next year to study on how to become wealthy. What do you want to be a millionaire, and what would it be? And for my reasons for being a millionaire, there's goals I want to accomplish. It's not even about this mind. I don't care. I just want property, and I want to take care of my family because the world's fucked. And I've got a lot of interesting hobbies that I want to just, contribute to, and just, I'm setting my kids up for success too. So that we were all learning about macroeconomics and microeconomics together. And I learned a lot about loans. I learned everything I possibly could about financial maturity and financial education and independence. And I studied it. I studied what it would be to be a millionaire. And my view on money is different. Everything that I do now, it has to come back to me. I don't want to invest in anything if it's not going to make me that energy. And I'm being serious. Everything that I invest into, it's for my creative outlets, because I genuinely enjoy doing this, and I've had a lot of obstacles with it. I've had a lot of, people discouraging me and telling me terrible things before Kitchen Occultist, and like just really just shutting me down. And I had to understand that those people, those handful of people, that words are very impactful, they just don't have the balls to do it themselves. And that's okay. But that has nothing to do with me. And if people are afraid of things I have to say, then you got to make your own peace with the choices you made. Like, I don't know what to tell you. See, I'm getting my money straight with all this. And that means that I can't be bought. I can't be controlled. All of these things are what are important right now. It's not about this nonsense. It's not about, buy a new thing. It's literally about fortifying what belongs to you and your rights, because as I have been told, and I've said this, we do live in a lawless society. It's just not ours. The police are there to keep us divided from the people running this shit, because the more money you have, the more rights you have, the more you can buy your way out of shit. And I'm not saying that's the goal for me at all. I don't want to go have the privilege to break the law, and it's not like that. But I motherfucking will say one thing. I want to be able to have the means to have fortitude that I deserve to be on this goddamn planet as long as I decide, not some fucking decrepit ass oligarch that's completely disconnected and just, foaming at the mouth for more greed because they're so empty inside. That these people are really disgustingly miserable. I hope you guys know that. I've had meditations and I've seen this shit. Belial helps a lot with this sort. I know Belial. He is so anti-establishment and anti-fascism and anti-fucking control in this way. And what he has taught me with such conviction and such energy is get the fuck up and get your shit together in all areas. And you can. You've got time. Because I'm over here what the fuck? So anyways, in terms of money, I let all of that come to me. And when I have things crystals, green adventuring, money charms, I'm not focused anymore on, I want the energetic flow of currency into my life so I can give and I can receive, because it's not about just taking and hoarding. I don't want to be those people. I don't want, personally, a closet full of fucking clothes that I don't even know what I have. I want to be able to have some nice, decent pieces of clothing, and I do, and have my office, and I do have all, these things that I have that I'm building on, and it all comes together. And the work you have to put in is within yourself, and find what makes you buzz, what makes you feel passionate. And if you don't know, then they will help you. They'll help you figure out who you are. Because I've always known, I don't know, this is going to sound really egotistical. If I put my mind to anything, I can get great at it. I know I have so many things that I'm passionate about. So when I'm burnt out creatively, if I have writer's block in one area, or I'm, for different things, I can just go to music, you know what I mean? And do that until I gas out. And then, and I come back and forth. I have a routine, like in my office, where I kind of ping pong back and forth. Like I'll work out for a bit outside of my work. I'll do some push-ups, I get antsy, come back and get some work done, go and do, I have I get it all done, but I have a consistent sort of routine that works for me. And you can't find that structure in this matrix. You got to sit at a fucking cubicle looking at a mauve bulletin board for 8 hours. And it's crazy. So I like to use magic to bring those energies into my life. I'm not working for another individual. Like, unless I have a goal, unless there's something that I get to learn from a company or an individual or whatever, I'm not interested. And that was something that I see. I talk about a lot about the system and magic, and it kind of combines. It's because we're talking about money and witchcraft. When I was in my culinary career, most of it, I didn't need the money. I just took the hardest jobs so I can earn my title as a chef. But there were points where I did need the paycheck. It helped, it's not like you can survive on a cook's wage at all, let alone have a family. But when I saw other people struggling, and I had some setbacks, my money has been fluctuating, I realized, gosh, this is impossible. Like, cause my mentality about restaurants was, I'll stay here, but if in 6 months I'm not learning anymore, I'm gone. That's it. That's my thing. I'm not here for you. And when you become financially vulnerable in certain areas, you realize, gosh, I know what it's like to be super broke. Okay. I'm not at my peak in finances right now. I'm also not at the worst situation that I've been, but post-COVID really fucked things up here. But I'm cool, I'm really cool. I'm level-headed about this shit. I'm like, fine, I'm gonna go. I'll ride this wave. Fuck you guys, I'm not gonna fucking cry about it too much. But I've been poor, and I can't imagine being stuck in a place because you're that broke, and I've seen it a lot of times, and I was fortunate that I didn't have to do that long term. So that I don't care. My husband and I argued about it too when I moved here, because I was looking for a job. He didn't want me to. He was, and my visa doesn't allow it now, which sucks. It's cool. It's actually cool. But when I was first coming here, I was like, I can't wait to work in Australia kitchens, and I'll learn everything. I already know conversions and all this shit. And I had told him, like, if I don't like a place within 6 months, if I'm not learning from you anymore, like legitimately, I'm just doing the motions and I'm out. And he's like, well, people here don't like that. I'm like, I'm sure they don't. They don't like it in America either, and that's too fucking bad, because I'm not staying at a place for 10 years and getting dead in the eyes and having fucking PTSD, because it sucks, dude. So anyways, I cannot exhaust my energy in exchange for money in this system. We all know that's stupid. And we all know that we have to right now. My husband has to work. It's, we don't have a choice just to go, we're going to do kitchen occultists. It's, these algorithms are just as fucked and screwy as the outside world, because this was working for people. I've made money off of YouTube and AdSense. I've made really decent money, and you can't do that anymore because these companies are bought out. Google's totally bought out. We all know that. And they censor everything you say. And that also gets calculated in the algorithm to what type of person you are. And I had to even agree when I started the Rook, because this is a new channel that I just started like a couple months ago to hold it on queue. They had to have like identification, and if you say anything out of context, they can take your fucking shit to, you say something that they don't like, the police can get involved. And you have to understand, we're not in a system where people think it's funny, like, well, my side's winning over here, I'm right. No. You have to understand we're losing our rights as individuals. So when I sit here and I talk about getting my money straight, I don't give a fuck about your AirPods or your bullshit. And my kids don't either. I am really, really thankful that I homeschooled those two. I pulled those kids out of that fucking system. And they don't give a, you know what they do? They work, they train, and they work. They don't even want to kick it with people right now. And I'm like, I stress them because they're like super like best friends. I'm like, you guys go on a date or something. Fuck, get into trouble. And they're like, no, we're working. I don't want to deal with people right now. They don't want to deal with the drama and the teen bullshit and young adult bullshit. And they're just grinding. And I'm like, okay, find balance with it, but they're so happy in their art. They're animators. They both do animation, and my son does coding, and they're just fucking excited. And I'm like, I'm not gonna get in your way then, but go and get out. I make them go do that, other places half of the week so they can still get out, because I think it's important. But it's important to kind of like respect your kids' wishes, but also like say, hey man, why don't you just try it this way and see what happens. So they go to the library, they go get coffee, they go to these other things, but we're working on our shit, and that's, my vortex feels good. Fuck, my vortex feels really good. I don't have a happy, super perfect life. I broke down yesterday because I'm just frustrated about all this. I'm frustrated that we can't move even though we want to. And even if we had the super duper duper means, if I was making like 20K a month right now, we can't move. Here in Australia, that's how fucked it is. There's a 0.8% approval rate for renting a house, and all the houses are thrice as expensive as they were 6 months ago. I'm not even exaggerating. You can look it up. I'm super fucking serious. It's wild here. During COVID, after lockdown, not during lockdown, but we were house hunting, and we had the means, everything was fine. No, nothing was available. It's weird. It was the weirdest thing. It'd be like 60 people applying for a house. And then all the houses we started looking at after that, the pictures looked really good. And when you get there, it's like extra hood, like hood, like warning signs. This fucking whole street is falling apart. Stay away from this section. I'm like, what the $500 a week? How stupid crazy. First of all, I'm not. Man, how do I say this about Australia? There are people in Australia where I am that think they're hood, and they do that shit. They start fucking, oi, way. Oh, I said way. They don't say way. That's California. They, oi, mate. And they've got like their zip code tattooed on their knuckles, and I'm just like, motherfucker, you'd get eaten alive. Like in 2 seconds. Like, you just do that in California, you get eaten alive. And so the here, I have this kind of like weird arrogance. It's not like an arrogance, but when I was in some really crappy neighborhood looking at a house that was $2,000 a month, and it was literally falling apart. When I say like hanging on by a thread, literally, there was a hole in the floor that looked like it was a fucking, a tunnel or a portal. And they're like, oh, as is. I go, well, what if my fucking kid falls in and goes to hell and never comes out? Like shit, like, I'm not kidding. Like, the floors were not leveled. It's crazy here. It's about taking control of our own lives. And we have to kind of do it in my understanding, from what I learned from these infernals, given where we are, we're in this really weird shift right now. It's going to be fucking crazy. It's going to be the best shift ever. Sorry, I have like Trump memes in my mind because he's like talking so much shit, and I'm just like, fuck, this is so crazy. 2024 is going to be fucking wild. I don't care. I don't care who wins. I'm not even there. I care that it's going to be fucked either way. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Some other candidate can come in and change shit for 4 years. They'll either kill him off, or they'll have fucking one of their old 90-year-old fucking decrepit oligarchs running the place, or their figureheads, excuse me. It's just stupid. All of this is stupid. So I have disconnected. And I go in and out of this shit because I have to. But I work on my magical systems and with energy. And I know I kind of got off topic a little bit. But within witchcraft and energy, I think it's important that we tune into ourselves and we tune into the things in our environment and understand them more, because we are so closed off that all we can see is, oh, this is a really lovely, I need to buy this. This is so pretty, I need to buy. And that's fine. And the demons like that, they like pretty things. And I'm not saying like in an unhealthy way. They don't have that limitation though. Like Lilith loves crystals. So if I gave her a whole fucking table full of crystals, she'd probably love them. I don't have a whole table full of crystals. She's so expanded that it's not the same. They don't get as overwhelmed like we do. Like if I had a whole table full of crystals, I would fucking lose it. But I wouldn't be able to enjoy them all immediately. You know, like it's that individual connection we have with some of our things. And when you make magic, that adds to that greatly. Or when you connect like with an animal. This is just a chicken bone that I boiled in dark moon water, and I'm eventually going to make bone dust for magic with it, and I have permission from the chicken. I sound like a big stoner, but in all honesty, you do that, you connect with that too. If you feel like an off vibe when you find bones, just leave them. They're not for you. Or if you cook, don't just save. I personally just don't save every bone. Some people do, and that gets into dark territory for me. That's like my limit, you know, like I think necromancy is fine as long as you're having an absolute respect and you're not treating that past living person or, you know, chicken or cat or owl or whatever like just a tool. Like you're treating it like it was a living, breathing being. And if you have an off feeling about using it for something, then you should probably listen to that. And understand too, when you're new at witchcraft, that a lot of that can be a bit of just intimidation or paranoia. Some of it can be just a ward. It really can. Like people say that all the time about like scary things and demonic things. Sometimes they scare me, but where I am in my path is I confront it and I have to figure out why does it scare me, because I feel very protected in the dark. I have these confrontational experiences. But for some people, they might see like an owl statue and it might be consecrated, right? It might mean something. They might be able to read that and they'll go, oh, you fucking, oh. You know, that's a ward that's working. That doesn't mean that person's evil. That means that person's probably not supposed to be snooping around. Maybe the energy of that object or the person that allowed the spirit to be in that object, whatever the case is, doesn't want your, you know, meddling kid poking his nose and going, oh, what's this owl? You know, that kind of, I'm not saying like that conscious or sentient in those sorts of, like a direct translation of that, but it is applicable. There is absolutely things where, you know, first of all, with kids, that's a completely different story. I'm going to save that for another episode because I can go on another hour about just my experiences with kids and spirituality. But these magical systems are set in place for reasons. And when people find themselves getting a bit terrified of something that looks creepy, it's working. It's simply working. I have, because I'm a renter, and here in Australia, inspections for rentals is very common. It's not like in America where I come from. If you're on Section 8, if you are in lower income housing, you might have inspections every year. Here, that doesn't matter. It's just the renters, the real estate comes in. They just make sure that everything's reasonably clean and like not super damaged. They're not supposed to like white glove the place. I've had that, and I've had to say not to do that. And if there is a problem, they can email me, because the people, this one real estate lady, there's a corner of rust on our shower that we can't get out, that's been there since like I moved in, like literally 2 inches of rust on the shower door. And she was like fucking taking pictures. She was telling me that if I need to learn how to clean, I can buy these things called a scour and a scrub brush. And I told her to fuck off. I said, shut the fuck up. I ain't dealing with, like, I'm such a nice person, man. But when you start doing that shit, I am not going to be nice to you anymore. And I won't even like lose my cool anymore. I used to. When I was younger, I'd be like, oh, hell no, don't be talking to people like that. I fucking, you know, now I'm just like, just shut up. And just email me if it's a problem, because if you're allowed to say this sort of stuff in this tone, you should document it, and then we can go over it together via email. That's what I do to people. I can just, you know, just stop. So anyways, my point in this fucking rambling story was our new real estate, they only come once a year. The dude came in here and he went, oh, and took a picture, because they have to take pictures to, for their shit. And he left and he was cool. He was kind of like, oh, fuck, man. I don't care. It's not none of your business. You're in here to make sure I'm not damaging anything, not to, he was cool. I can tell he was just a little like, oh, maybe I didn't mean to get freaked out, But there's nothing in here that's too scary. It's just a bunch of water and bones and sticks and rocks, honestly, and jars, and oils. So, but it can be even the mild things in witchcraft can be confronting, but this room is very fortified and protected, and I do a lot of magic in here. I do a lot of work in here, and the energy feels good, but it gets very, very clunky. It gets very congested. I was doing a heavy reading last night for my husband, and we're just doing some past life path working stuffs, and he's doing his whole thing. And we were in here for an hour and a half, and it just felt so heavy afterwards because it was such a channeled heavy reading. I had to super clean and open the window, and it's a full moon. I've got cramps too, so it's everything's just fucking feeling amplified. So, and then the night before, both my babies were just wide awake till 2 a.m. They just woke up in the middle of the night. Full moon. I'm serious. It's the only explanation. They don't eat lots of sugar at night. They have a routine. It's a full fucking moon. It causes lunacy. That's where the term comes from. So anyways, I meant to just talk about witchcraft. I end up talking about lots of things. But I hope regardless you got some insight and you enjoyed this episode. I want to talk about magic a lot more in terms of my craft on here. In the gist of it, figure out what you want to do if you're new to this. Learn protection and grounding, first of all, and then just go with the flow. Don't have to do everything that other people are doing, and you don't have to second guess yourself so much. And this is coming from somebody who is a grandmaster at second guessing herself. Even with my practice at times, if I have, because I'm in, a country where there's lots of different plants that I'm not used to and different ingredients and things, and it's been interesting. My journey here has been energy hunting since I got here and really got engulfed into my practice again. And sometimes you'll second guess yourself. And you'll do some research online and you'll figure out I was totally right about this. And you realize, well, why does this feel very cleansing? Is it because of the menthol properties that it has? Eucalyptus is very good. It doesn't have menthol. That's probably the wrong term. But there's so many varieties of eucalyptus here in Australia. And that is great for spiritual cleansing and for personal cleansing too, by the way. It's just as good in my experience as using hyssop. So there's different types of eucalyptus leaves here and trees. They're wild. They're right outside my house. And the energy for each of them feels slightly different, but they all feel the same. And then this is energy because they were here for such a long time, and how Aboriginal folks used them for medicine and for their spiritual practice because they've got their own systems here that I am very ignorant about. But you learn all of these things, and I've second guessed myself. That was the point of me saying that, is being new to certain types of tropical fruits and ingredients that I have no experience with. And you can find them wild here. It's cool. There's star fruit and wild mangoes, and not good mangoes though. They're turpentine mangoes, but still it's nice to go for a walk and see mango trees with all these mangoes that look better than they taste. So, and I grow banana trees, so I use the roots, and you can use them for all these things. The banana roots, I've learned that you can actually use them for dental stuff. So if you have dental pain, you can make a mouthwash, just like you can with clove. I use clove for dental pain. I have a wisdom tooth coming in that I gotta get pulled. It's been coming in for 10 years now. But I have used clove before, when it was cutting the surface. So I am going to leave it at that, because that's just the best way to stop a video. To end a conversation is to talk about my teeth. But in the gist of it, I think a lot of people, They go to magic and they're uncertain because their third eye is just closed. And that's just because we live in a system that doesn't support spirituality, or barely started to, because it can monetize off of it. That is the only reason why spirituality is as popular as it is now, is because there is a market for it. And that's why it's pushed. That's why there's so many. And look, people need to make money. Do your readings, sell your crystals, sell your charms, sell your salves. Like, I'm working on doing the same. But the reason why there's such a big oversaturated market with people just selling the same types of crystals and the same types of this, I'm not talking about the handmade stuff, like the mass marketing, is because post-COVID, during COVID, everybody started to kind of like figure shit out. And this is where we are. A lot of people started to really wake up or reawaken, if you're already spiritual. And because there's a huge market for it, this industry is, our system, which is just a corporation. I always say America's not a country, it's a corporation, and people get upset at me for that, because it is. I'm not, my home country is a fucking corporation, and I was a product of it. Like, I grew up in the 90s where everything was just blue and glow in the dark and new on the shelves, and it when you grow up in that, you get really jaded by shit quickly. And I had toys and cool shit, you know what I mean? Like, I had nice Christmases, and I got a Sega Genesis, and I had, video games and stuff like that, and a bike, and I had cool shit like a lot of working class latchkey kids. But you get so jaded from this system because of where it is now, and I see that. So coming into our spiritual selves, it's a blessing in disguise. It's the laws of the universe in a way. It kind of, everything will expose itself at some point. And we are really awakening in our own genres. If you are a left-hand path practitioner or new to this, like I'm fairly new to this is only a couple years in for me, it's still different. It's still, we all have our own different perspectives on things. But in the gist of it, we have a lot in our surroundings that we can utilize and connect with. Even if you don't want to cast spells, or you don't want to build a hex on somebody who's being a complete tyrant to you, you can go out and even garden and try to connect with those bell peppers. I know it sounds stupid, but you can. There's this connection, and there's this unspoken language between plants and people, and you'll start to kick into those senses. And please don't just go, I have my spidey sense, is this edible? And it's like belladonna or something. Like, don't do, that's ego though. That's why we shoot ourselves in the ass with that sort of stuff, because we know better. But you have to let go of that and not even think like that, and then just exist and be in the present. And when you can do that, in my experience, I can read and see energy very, very well. I can see it at times too, especially if I am a little stoned, I will admit, because I take a high level of THC at night at times, and I can see the energy like vibrating. Like last night, I came into the office and I cleansed after my husband went to bed. Babies had already been down. It was a late night, came and cleansed, and then I just charged this under the full moon, like outside for a minute, and it just can feel, and I can see the energy coming off of it and like vibrating. And I do that for a lot of things, especially if you look past, like with your peripheral, and just kind of gaze past an item for long enough without looking completely like a psychopath, and just like, you can start to see, if it's like people, you can see the aura, like a hue of color, and those will change from time to time. And then for certain objects, I can see the energy patterns. I know it sounds weird, you don't have to believe me, but that's just something that's always I've been able to do. So anyways, I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you for hanging out with me this morning. I had a blast. I'm going to be trying to post here Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays for the next few weeks until we can really get a groove of where we're going. The Clips channel is in the works as well. I've got a lot that I need to relearn on Adobe Premiere because I haven't used that software in a couple years. So please hang tight, and I'm trying to figure out a schedule for that so your timeline isn't just full of my big floating head. I think that that's important, that you have a variety of things, not just me every day. But until next time, Moon Muffins, you guys take care, and thank you for tuning in, and thank you for all of the support. I'll see you next time.